Hello and welcome everyone to the Global Coin Report talk show. My name is Amir Ness. I'm your co-host, and I'm here with Mark Yagalla, senior editor of, not senior editor, chief editor of the Global Coin Report. And I want to welcome all the viewers. We are doing this as our first show, as our introductory show. So I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about our backgrounds. And with that, let me start with Mark. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark, and how you got to the cryptosphere.
Okay. I went to the Wharton School of Business. I started my career on Wall Street, ran a hedge fund for a number of years, got out of the game, did a lot of proprietary trading just for myself, got into the crypto space last year, and I couldn't be happier. I like where the space is heading over the next 5, 10, 20 years, and I think the opportunities for investors are limitless, and I think this is the space to be in.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, we have similar backgrounds. I was a prop trader on the street for 10 years and then a financial advisor for a few years before that. And when I learned about Bitcoin and the blockchain, I fell in love with it. I realized that this was going to be transformational technology. And more importantly, I realized that capital markets were going to be disrupted because of the blockchain. And that's how I got involved. So again, I'd like to welcome everyone, and let's start out our first show, Mark. Why don't we have you run us through a little bit of the technicals on Bitcoin, price action, what you see, what you saw a week ago compared to what you see now, because we might have had a breakout here. Tell us a little bit about what you think is going on.
Well, in the last 3 hours, we've had a $400 drop. And, with Bitcoin, what people have to understand is that it is it's a unique instrument in the sense that it'll do nothing for, say, 20, 22 hours or 2 days. And then all of a sudden you get these monumental moves. I mean, today we had the $400 move, and a lot of it is pure market manipulation. It's whales that they know where the stops are. A lot of this occurs on BitMEX, and they run stops and they screw over, shorts, longs. There was a lot of longs that, when we were at we reached 74.40. And, we were hovering around 7,300, 7,400. And a lot of them, I was one of them, based on the way the chart was set up, it looked like we were going to 7,600, 7,800 to make a run to 8,000. Well, with Bitcoin, when the move couldn't happen, and, when basically the consolidation and, there was basically no movement, well, that's what happens. The orders came in and just flushed out all the stops. And we're right now at 7,000.
So let me ask you a question, because I agree. I think there are, whether you call them whales, the big players, market manipulators, how reliable is your kind of technical analysis when you know that at any given moment you can have a move like this?
For me, I'm basically a trend follower. That's
all right.
That's what I have learned over the years. That's, to me, what works. So I look for breakouts and breakdowns. And, if you, on the charts, you identify, the breakout and the breakdown, and you notice once Bitcoin goes through those levels, it makes a very fast move. $100, $200 in today's case, of $400. And, there's a lot of opportunity for investors to profit, but they have to be patient. You have to pick your spots, identify the spots, and then execute your orders properly.
And so let me ask you this, minusing this move here, because the consolidation that we've had in the 63 to 6,900 range has been going on for a while. Do you see what's happened in the last few days as a breakout? And do you think the lows are in for Bitcoin?
Without a doubt. I think the lows are in. This is what we're seeing today is just a natural, it's just how Bitcoin trades. Bitcoin never goes straight up, never goes straight down. It will find a spot, it will consolidate, then you'll get a sharp move down. I expect us to consolidate between 6,800 to 7,000 and gradually climb. I think what happened this year is just too many people were betting on 5,000. And, you know, the 6,000 level is a very strong support zone. And, you know, as we like to say, if something can't go lower, it must go higher. Same thing. If it can't go higher, it must go lower. So if you follow those rules with Bitcoin and just get a sense of the market, you know, well, you have to watch the tape and you'll get, you know, used to trading Bitcoin. That's really how to do it. And there's a lot of money to be made, especially if you're using leverage on an exchange like BitMEX.
Yeah, very true. Well, I mean, I definitely have to agree with you. I think the lows are in. I'm much less of a trader as you than you are. I'm looking at it more from a long-term kind of technical view, and really just saying we've touched 63, 64, 6,200, even a little bit lower than that many times. And, you know, ironically, that's right around the price where most miners start to break even. It's like 5,700. And I always thought to myself, if that level holds, then it's a clear indication that we're not going any lower. And I think it was like it touched there 3 or 4 times, didn't stay there too long. So let's get into something else, Mark. Why don't we talk a little bit about ETFs? I mean, you're from Wall Street. Tell us a little bit about why you think the SEC is making, you know, all these rejections and then kind of backtracking and say, we'll review it. And, you know, you really have some powerful people that are applying for these ETFs. It's not just some small rinky-dinky, you know, money managers. You've got, you know, guys like CBOE, NASDAQ getting involved. Give us some insight into, do you think it'll happen? Why you think it hasn't happened? And some color in general.
Right now, I do not foresee a Bitcoin ETF this year. I'm even somewhat skeptical next year for a couple of reasons. You know, number one, if you look at why, you know, why did Satoshi Nakamoto come up with Bitcoin? Well, you had the financial crisis, you had Bear Stearns, you had Lehman Brothers, you had the housing bubble. And, you know, then the central banks come in and pumped in a ton of money. And, you know, you have the Austrian economists that just basically say, you know, that government intervention is wrong and the government should stay out of, you know, our money, fiat. And, you know, it's funny, that's why, you know, again, Satoshi created it, but now you have all these Bitcoin holders saying, you know, they're praying for the Bitcoin ETF. And, you know, that's Wall Street coming in. And really, you know, Bitcoin was supposed to be the antithesis of Wall Street.
I agree.
So, you know, I find that funny that everyone is banking on the Bitcoin ETF. Number two, why is the SEC rejecting it? Well, okay, well, you have this exchange. The most profitable exchange right now in the world is BitMEX. The co-founder, a 34-year-old Brit guy, is like the youngest self-made billionaire in Britain. He's worth $2-3 billion. The exchange is registered in the Seychelles. They accept no U.S. customers. U.S. customers, if they want to use BitMEX, they have to use an illegal VPN. And then they have no KYC. So you just send in your Bitcoin and then you do your 100-to-1 trading. And, you know, there's huge volumes on BitMEX that are moving the markets. I mean, last week, BitMEX went down for maintenance for 1 hour. Yeah. Bitcoin went from 6,400 in 1 minute, 6,400 to 6,900. I mean, this is a $500 move. And, you know, these are the things that, you know, these are red flags for the SEC. This is market manipulation 101. And the SEC does not want, the mom and pop that, have their accounts with Fidelity going and buying a manipulated asset. So
Yeah, but
I'm very skeptical on the Bitcoin ETF.
so, I mean, I want to kind of bring up a point. I definitely see that, and using BitMEX as an example is fair enough. Using 100 times leverage, or even 10 times or 5 times leverage on an asset like Bitcoin in this market is a gamble. But when it comes to the SEC, look, you've got leveraged ETFs like Direxion that have 3, 4, 5 times leverage ETFs, and they're getting approved. I think there's two things that the SEC is probably concerned about. One is essentially the SEC is part of Wall Street. Okay, even though they're there as a regulatory body, they were born inside that system, and they want to perpetuate that system.
It's a revolving door. This chairman of the SEC comes from Wall Street, goes back to Wall Street. So
Right.
Exactly.
So there's a part of me that's thinking, look, they know it's inevitable that an ETF is coming, but at the same time, they probably do want to delay it as long as possible because Bitcoin is going to eat their cake. I mean, you're going to see a lot of capital inflows into that ETF when it gets approved, and that money is coming away from traditional capital market money. So, it's going from one to the other. And I mean, I don't know what you think, but I look at it and I say that's got to be in their minds.
I think you definitely hit, you're right on there. They're looking at how do we protect ourselves? I mean,
Yeah.
Binance, according to their figures, they're more profitable than NASDAQ.
Yeah.
So
yeah, already.
So when you have these other exchanges making this kind of money, and Binance was started just last year, 12, 15 months ago.
They've got to be scared shitless.
Yes, exactly.
They've got to be. And let me say another thing, and people should really know this. Andreas Antonopoulos also talks about this when he talks about the ETF proposal. On the one hand, it's good because you're going to get a lot of mom and pops and mainstream adoption of Bitcoin. But let's not forget something. When you buy into the ETF, you do not own Bitcoin. You just own a proxy for Bitcoin.
Yes.
And that's one of the important things about Bitcoin. I mean, Andreas always talks about, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Your keys, your Bitcoin. Well, ultimately, all these people that are going to pump money into an ETF, I hope they know that they don't own Bitcoin.
Exactly, because there's two schools of thought in the U.S. Is Bitcoin a commodity or is it a currency?
Right.
If you stick it into an ETF, well, basically you could say it's a commodity. But as a currency, that's what I love about Bitcoin is the freedom that you can spend it where as you need to, where you want, and it's you are in control of your money.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see what happens with that. And Mark, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Ethereum. Tell us what your insight is there. I'm self-admittedly not as up to speed on Ethereum, so I'm going to let you take the mic on this one.
All right. Well, Ethereum is right now everyone's favorite shitcoin. It's testing right now the 250 level. I really don't think it's going to hold. I think we are going to go down and test the 200 level. An interesting article came out over the weekend by Jeremy Rubin on TechCrunch, I believe it was, and basically it was titled "The Inevitable Collapse of ETH."
Yeah.
And then we had the Vitalik. He comes out and he pens a lengthy rebuttal on Reddit, and okay, he defended, you know, what he created and everything, but I'm looking at it going, boy, this really reminds me of Bear Stearns and Lehman coming out saying, there's nothing wrong. No, we're solid. There's no worries. There's
I
no
don't know if
worries.
it's that bad, Mark, but that's
Well, he's creating his own. Look, when the minute he has to defend Ethereum and the protocol and what he's created, that's a bad sign.
true. But explain to me something. Like with Bitcoin, it has no kind of, it's totally decentralized. Okay, with Ethereum, you've got, you know, a group of people really running it. What are the chances that another Ethereum type platform that does everything they do could appear or could get big, let's say, because I know it exists out there?
I think that's what's going to happen. I know, you know, there's a lot of talk about that, and you know, who is going to be the true Ethereum killer?
Right.
Again, I look at it. Let's see and find out. And but right now, if for our listeners and viewers, you know, Bitcoin is the place to be right now. If you're looking at the entire crypto market, you know, and you're saying it's a bad neighborhood, you know, Bitcoin's the best house in a bad neighborhood right now, and it's the flight to safety. And I think that's what people should be focused on right now, and let everything else, you know, shake itself out.
And would you agree that if I said, you know, Bitcoin is essentially the reserve currency of the crypto world and will stay that way, what do you think about that statement?
Without a doubt. Look, if you know, the ETH/BTC pairing, it just keeps getting weaker. I mean, you know, it's now under 0.04. I think it's 0.038 right now, and it's going lower. We're going to see strength money flow into Bitcoin, and it's coming out of Ether and all the altcoins right now.
Yeah, I got to say that's something I totally agree with. I think the thing, you know, I once said the smartest thing Satoshi ever did was disappear after he created Bitcoin. That was it, because that really left it with a true decentralized nature, and I think that's a big plus for Bitcoin.
I agree, unless you're one of those crazies that believes Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah. I don't think we'll ever know who he is. I mean, there's a reason why we don't, you know, now, and it's probably going to stay that way.
Agree.
So let's transition into kind of my side of the world, and talk about two areas. We've got. I'm from the mining world, so I like to talk about Bitcoin mining in particular. And the other area is community management for ICOs, which I've recently got a couple of calls from ICOs, and I've had very similar conversations. So I think it's worth me sharing those two touch points. So if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about those two, and we probably exchange on the community management side, because being, you know, part of Global Coin Report, I'm sure you're talking to a lot of ICOs yourself too. So on the mining side, I think there were, I just wrote an article actually, and here's what I saw in the last few days. 6 months ago, I was reading about how Washington State in the US and Quebec in Canada and other parts of Canada also were the best places to mine, because why? You had cold weather, you had a safe jurisdiction, and you had cheap, plentiful power. So I looked at that and I said, yeah, you've got all of those things. But I also saw one other thing, and I said to myself, look, the US and Canada are both, you know, they're already tier one nations. I mean, these guys, you're talking about systems that are in place. They've got centralized bodies in place, and they're first world countries already. They're developed nations. So I said to myself, look, I don't see how a place like Canada is going to allow for cheap power to be consumed by miners when they're probably not even sure if they want the blockchain or Bitcoin, to reach mass adoption in their countries. And I never talked about it with anyone, but at that time I was already looking for a location to start our mining farm. And you know what? Sure enough, I read articles over the last few days, and what do they say? One of them, actually, I think one of them was from Global Coin Report, but I'm not sure. I know one of them was from CCN, and it said, Washington State passes legislation not only to increase the cost of power by 50%, but to charge upfront any mining operation for the infrastructure to deliver them that power. And I'm like, they just basically wiped out any desire for miners to get involved over there. And I'm just thinking, this is what happens in industrialized nations that are already developed. And the point that I'm trying to make is the blockchain is going to be adopted by developing countries a lot swifter than it's going to be adopted by already developed countries, because already developed countries are threatened by the growth of the blockchain and Bitcoin, whereas developing countries see it as a tool for progress and they can actually take advantage of it. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. I mean, in the sense that they have their way of doing things, the developed world, and they want to stay that way. You know, the banks, the Washington, whether it's London, Frankfurt, Brussels, they have their way of doing things. But, you know, in the developing world, they really, you know, first of all, you have currency turmoil. So there's concerns over, you know, do I put my money into fiat? And, you know, for miners, it's a way also out of poverty. I mean, there is, in Venezuela, there's stories of people there that got into mining, and that is how they're surviving.
Yeah. Power there is ridiculously cheap.
You know, which is an you know, that's a, you know, Amir, if someone wanted to get into mining today, you know, they had a few $1,000s and they were looking to, you know, partake, how would they go about doing that?
So there, I mean, if you were talking about ASIC mining, or which is essentially Bitcoin mining, there's one answer. If you're talking about altcoin mining, it's a different answer. So let's say for altcoins. For altcoin mining, where you're mining with a GPU, you can do that on your own. You definitely want to have cheap power, but because it's silent, or makes much less noise, and it's not an industrial type machine, you know, you can run 6 rigs in your home without much of a problem. Then the question is, what are you going to mine? What coin are you going to mine? It's just like picking stocks, right? If you mine a coin that doesn't grow in value, then okay, you might make some money, but you really didn't do much. So if they wanted to mine altcoins and they knew which altcoin they want to mine, and they had, you know, kind of conviction on that, then you can just buy GPUs, which are, you know, essentially graphic cards for video gamers, and you can start mining altcoins, and that's totally doable. If you want to do Bitcoin mining, then you can't really do it profitably as an individual, unless you're in a country like Venezuela and it's extremely cheap. But you know, I mean, we have a farm, we have a mining farm, and we work with small investors. And the whole point of the farm was, how do we set up a platform that allows the individual investor to get involved in Bitcoin mining? And the reason was, because you can't really do it on your own. I mean, if you, Mark, bought 3 or 4 ASIC miners, you would not be able to live in your home running those miners because of the amount of noise they make, the heat they disperse, the monitoring of those miners. I mean, it's an industrial, you know, endeavor basically. And your cost of power is probably 9 or 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and that wouldn't make it, you know, so profitable. So you got to have a platform for mining. I mean, this brings up another thing, Mark, you know, cloud mining. I mean, cloud mining is ridiculous. It's just, it's unprofitable, and you still have people that are buying Genesis mining contracts that are being sold at like $280 per terahash. And just to give you an idea, one ASIC miner is about 13 or 14 terahash, let's say. So, you know, they're charging like $4,000 for a piece of equipment that you can, you know, you can buy for $1,000. And it's ridiculous. So these are the areas in our industry, you know, it's kind of like looking at a shitty ICO and saying, I can't believe this shitty ICO raised $10 million, you know, or $20 million. And they exist. There are plenty of those out there. I look at it.
Yeah. What's even worse is when you watch the founders, you know, look at the founders on Instagram, and they're staying in 5-star hotels, flying around on private jets. You know, it's like,
it's horrible.
It's a slap in the face.
And then I would like to say for our show, one of the things that I know, just because I know you, is we're really going to be outspoken about what we see, you know, what looks shitty and what looks good, and kind of uncover some of the stuff that's going on, because it's just like I sit there and I look at my LinkedIn newsfeed and I see things that are just I don't know whether to laugh or just like, you know, I don't know what to do with them. But basically, you know, lucky enough to have a platform like this, I want to definitely spread knowledge about what is out there, basically.
And I'm in complete agreement. I mean, in full disclosure, the only thing I own right now is Bitcoin. I have been offered to invest in ICOs many, many times, and I have repeatedly said no. Nothing, none of them appealed to me. I felt I wasn't protected. And, you know, without the investor protection of, you know, of knowing, you know, that the team is going to deliver, you know, once you turn, you know, that's what people don't understand. Once you turn over your money, you know, you're at the mercy of the team. Are they going to focus on developing the product, the technology, or are they going to keep marketing and flying around the world?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what's going on. And that leads us into our last topic for today's show, which is community management. And I'll just start by saying this. I've spoken to, I think, 2 CEOs in particular with ICOs that are running. They got in touch and basically said, you know, I want to get some social media and some exposure, basically. And the conversation was something like, okay, how much does it cost? And how much are you going to raise me? And I think, and it was both, this happened twice. And I think this is where we're at right now with ICOs. People who are running 90% of the ICOs out there do not realize that outside of investing a couple of $100, investors are not going to just throw money at ICOs anymore. And community management is something that takes time and trust, and you earn it with your investors. And not me or any other big influencer, and I'm not big, but I'm talking about other big influencers. I don't care who does your YouTube. You know, you pay for that YouTube, but if you don't know how to build a community and how to articulate your value proposition with your community, you're dead in the water. And nobody's going to help you do that. You have to do that. Your team has to do that. So that's the message of community building. There's no shortcuts. Community building is exactly what it is. Building your community. And you know, I don't know what you see. You must talk to some ICOs. What do you hear?
You know, right now, a lot of ICOs are worried about spending money. You know, they raised money when Ethereum was $1,000.
Yeah.
We're at 250 right now, and you know, some have panic sold, some haven't, and you know, quite frankly, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But you know, I still say that even with Ethereum at 250, you have to spend money. You have to spend money on your on developing your technology. You have to spend money on marketing. You need to keep your investors in the loop. What's going on? When these ICOs that you know go quiet, I think that's the worst thing they can do.
Absolutely. And it's, sorry, just to interject here, you said something that I didn't say, but it's so true. You have to spend money on marketing. That means don't look at it as just, okay, what's my ROI for my marketing going to be? No, 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 no. You have to spend money on marketing, period. You have to get articles out there. You have to do videos, do interviews, reviews. And the reason why you have to do that is because that's part of your way of building the community. Yes, it will provide you with investors, but there isn't some sort of one-to-one correlation. You're going to have to do your marketing and let people know who you are and what you're about. Period.
I couldn't agree more.
So that's a message for the ICOs. Now, Mark, for our next show, I know I've got, I'm talking to a couple of different potential guests, and we'll kind of wrap it up right here. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. I'd like to encourage you to please subscribe to the channel, and you'll be getting a lot more really good content out of Mark and I at Global Coin Report. And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mark. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.